Nadi friends. I'm very happy to have with me today Emine Bostanci. Very glad to discuss with her story with the music, the story of learning, teaching, projects, and much more. Hi, Amina.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for accepting my invite.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah. So, Amina, let's just start from the beginning.
Sure. So actually my journey with music started in sort of an early age, but not with Kemenche. So I started music with saz, Turkish folk instrument, and I was 9. Then I started to play a bit of a flamenco guitar. It was weird change suddenly. But then I started taking some lessons from a saz player. And once he told me that, oh, actually, yeah, okay, I'm playing saz, but my main instrument is tambur. And then I was like, what is tambur? And I was around 16 years old by then. And I just searched the word tambur. And suddenly I had this recording from Ahenk, Murat Aydar and Derya Türkan. They were playing this Ferah Feza Sasemaisi as a duo. And yeah, I was just amazed by the sound of Kemenche. And actually, I grown up in a very religious family. My father is a professor in Islamic religion. And I grown up with the idea that before we came to this world, we heard the sound of God, we saw him and smelled, and our journey in this world is just based on seeking for such a beauty, such an amazing sound, such an amazing smell. And when I heard the sound of Kemenche, it just kind of awakened me like, oh, okay, this should be the closest sound I heard before. And I just felt so much connection with the sound. And then I started to play the
I mean, for the new generation, it's very hard to go for such kind of music. We should go for pop music, things that everybody is talking about and listening to.
Actually, it's kind of a maybe guilt pleasure thing, but I was also listening a lot of rock and rap, Turkish rap by then. But still, I had this sense of music in me that seeks for more like a melancholy sort of. And yeah, I don't know, something just took me in suddenly. And then all the taste, the musical taste has changed by then. But before I was also this, very like rocky teenager.
Okay, you had all the dose you want from that.
Exactly. But it's like, slowly building up, because when I started to Kemenche, I was thinking, oh, I can be never good in this music, because I hate listening music with lyrics in Turkish music, vocal music. It was not something for me. I was feeling, oh, this is so boring. I can only, enjoy the instrumental pieces. But then I started to listen the instrumental pieces. Then one more step, I started to listen in saz. Slowly kind of educated my ear in a way, And then suddenly I found myself enjoying Kani Karaca and all other masters like so much. I just find myself deep in the tradition. And after a while, I became really like traditional mind, and my taste has changed completely. But it was a process. So that's the thing, I think, with the young generation. It needs a bit of time, and I really find this works by artists like, for instance, Dilek Türkan or Yaprak Sayar. And so they are kind of also Ezgi Köker. They're producing music that can apply to young generation too. And it's a starting point maybe for young generation to pick music from somewhere and develop further. So it's the next stage. But yeah, it was an interesting journey.
Interesting. Now let's maybe highlight the context, the family, the community, how it started. I'm just focusing on the way you grasped music in this way. Just the
Well,
context.
yeah, I'm not coming from a musical family. Actually, I'm the first professional musician. And my father is a kind of amateur musician, let's say. We are coming from east of Turkey originally, and he plays saz, but also he's able to play any instrument he picks. Like he has amazing talent, but in an amateur level, and he loves music. And my mom is nothing to do with the music, but she's just a very good supporter, let's say, and she enjoys music. But I get it from my father, I think, because I saw he's playing saz at home, then I was like, oh, okay, it's an interesting instrument. Otherwise, probably I wouldn't find my way to music.
Yeah. What about the community? Was it a musical community? Like,
it was not. There were no one around me playing music or listening music actually that much. So I kind of built it myself, my own. It was of course harder than having a musician family.
Yeah.
But I was always very lucky. I really encounter the right people, right artists, musicians, teachers that always supported me and get me in the community. And I found myself after a very short time. I started Kemenche. I found myself just in the middle of Ottoman Turkish music community of Istanbul. So I was very lucky.
Interesting. I'll hit into that shortly. But the question is now the Kemenche has attracted you, and it is a very difficult instrument.
Yes.
Right? Now, going through this path with all the challenges, with such an availability of support of an expert, I mean, that decision at that time, was it difficult? Was it like you were unaware of the difficulty? What was it like?
Yeah, I was kind of, because I started to check, what is Kemenche, and it was saying, it's one of the hardest instruments in the world, almost impossible. And my father and we decided that I will be a music teacher, and I was playing saz and guitar, and he bought me a violin because he thought that I should play 3 instruments to be a music teacher. And then when I told him that I want to play this instrument, he was extremely shocked, and I was like, no, you will just start and you will leave it. I don't want you to do this. And if you do it by yourself. I don't support you.
Okay.
So just thought that this is something that is going to pass in, I don't know, 2-3 months, and after that I would just leave the instrument. And Kemenche is an instrument that you cannot buy it very cheap, By then, even the worst ones was quite expensive, so it's a bit of an investment. And it took me so long to kind of convince my father that it's a real thing. But I start by myself without any support. And it was kind of a part of the challenge as well.
Yeah.
And so I bought the instrument, but I was really passionate and ambitious about being a student of Derya Tukan.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just focusing on how can I, be a student of him in a short time? How can I improve myself in a quickest way? And of course, I was used to playing instruments, other instruments. Of course, this is a bowing instrument, so it's kind of different. But still, I had the sense of it, and I know how to read the scores. So it was only the challenge itself was, being able to produce a good sound out of it. And I remember many times my tears was on Kemenche in this part, just sliding. I had these memories because I was struggling so much that, oh my God, how can I fix this? How can I play this instrument beautifully? Because it's impossible. Like every time, every note is a challenge. You never know if it's going to sound great or, if your intonation will be good or not. So it was always hard, but I don't know. I always feel like the beautiful things in life always require some struggle before you get them.
Interesting. Now let's talk about the learning experience. Now you took several instruments, then you picked the Kemenche and you just get in hold with Kemenche, right?
Yeah.
So how did it go? Like the learning experience, the early steps and going forward with the learning.
Uh, for me, actually, I started to have lessons like 2 times per week, and I was studying very hard, like 6, 7 hours per day, just eating, and then practicing again. And we had some methods to learn Kemenche, and one of them is from Aslan Özel. And I find it very useful, to be honest. And I started with that. But mostly, what kind of made this process faster for me is I was just putting the Kemenche here and opening a video from Daria, like very close up, and I was listening for hours just to absorb what he's doing, just to feel, and it was so important for me psychologically, maybe, that just, the Kemenche is here. So we both kind of
Yeah.
acknowledge
Watch.
what's happening. Yeah. So, and I think that's why after a short time, my sound gets very similar to Daria, and people were a bit like, but it was just because of me. I'm a bit visual learner, so that really affected me. And I was always just listening and kind of imagining myself playing the same thing. And yeah, I think those kind of contributed my learning process a lot.
And then when did you encounter the first teacher officially?
The first teacher, it was 2010.
Uh-huh.
And I started with Neva Güses, and I was taking like 2 times per week. And then after 3 months, I finally reached Derya. And even though people were saying it's impossible, he never teaches, and etc., it was just a chance that he started teaching for a group in a cultural center in Üsküdar. And I approached him after a concert, and he was like, okay, come, I will check if you can play good enough. If not, next to our classroom, you will find another teacher. He's my, assistant. You will take a lesson with them, and then when you're ready, you will come. And then I remember that day I was really like biting my hands after, after having this information, and I started to try to find a way. How can I calm myself down? Play Daria to Daria Turkan. It was like, whoa. And then I get Passiflora, and it didn't work at all. But I remember the date, 8th December 2010. I played to him, and then he was like, okay, you can continue with us. And I was probably the most happy person, happiest person in the whole world. And then I started with him, and he was very supportive. And with him, I think it didn't change the way I learn, because I also still really watched him very carefully. He gave me instructions to develop different techniques, different ornaments. So it was very useful. But of course, it was not a steady rhythm classes. Of course, he was so busy. But still, being with him, knowing that he will be there for you, he will, teach you. It made a lot of sense, and yeah, it changed a lot in my playing.
Interesting. And what was the learning style, other than watching and looking into the details, mimicking, analyzing? right?
Yeah.
You say the scores and method books.
Yeah.
Like, is it one way of learning or?
Well, it's not one way of learning, but that was the learning process of mine. And for instance,
Mm,
Daria was kind of giving us a piece.
mm,
And he was telling us, okay, now do not consider the rhythmic structure of the piece,
mm,
but make an improvisation out of this
mhm.
score.
Yeah.
So he was kind of teaching us how to improvise in Makam
Mhm,
by giving us this guidance, which was very useful.
mhm,
But rather than it's always for me like listening and imitating, especially with the if I would like to learn a specific style, for instance, style of Jamil Bey, then I
mm,
just sit down and I just listen all the details and I imitate them.
mhm. Yeah.
Or with the improvisation is the same, that you kind of memorizing certain melodic lines,
Mm,
specific melodic structures for a taksim in specific maqams, then you have the vocabulary, then you interpret this
mm.
vocabulary.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. And so, can we consider this a kind of mishk? Is it a sort of mishk or something else?
it is like a, yeah, more like a digital mesh. That's,
Mm. Yeah.
but it is very interesting. I've never had a teacher that uses the real mesh system.
Mm,
Even in, I played in a, you know, the Sufi tekkes,
mm.
uh, but even there we had scores.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore now. But now it's
Mm,
very interesting. Actually, I'm learning Cretan Lira,
mm,
and now for the first time in my life, when I have a lesson with Kelly or Rose, they don't use scores. They just play the phrase, then you repeat, and then they play again. You repeat, and then you have the piece, which is also
mm,
challenging and nice.
mhm,
And yeah, I like both.
mhm. Amina, what about school? Were you doing music at school? So did you go to a conservatory or a
Yeah,
sort
in
of?
high school, no. In high school, the last 2 years of high school, I enrolled myself for an evening high school, evening type,
Mm,
which means you don't have to go to school.
mm,
You just go for the exams. Then I kind of devote my life and myself to music,
mm,
and I was preparing myself for the entrance exams, and also I was learning Kemenche.
mm,
So in that 2 years, I just really had some deep connection with the music. And then I started my bachelor at Yıldız Technical University.
mhm,
And it's one of my luck in life, actually, because I also accepted to Istanbul Technical University, which is the most renowned
mm,
conservatory, but I chose for the other one because I knew that Yıldız has this opportunity that you can also interact with musicians coming from different backgrounds, like jazz, classical, and Turkish music. All together, we were in the same class, and the vision of the school was actually having intellectual artists, not
mhm,
only like machine technical musicians,
mm,
but intellectual artists, and which was very important to me.
mhm,
So, and during the university times, I had a teacher, Alper Maral.
mm,
He's a musicology teacher, and actually, he has changed my life.
mhm,
He taught me like how to be an intellectual person, you know, how to approach to the art and uh, the parameters of the music and the world,
mm,
and thanks to him I had like 2 degrees both in musicology and performance.
mm,
It was tough, of course, because my focus was divided into two, and
mhm,
which kind of slowed me down in Kemenche playing.
mhm,
And people were also kind of complaining, oh, I mean, hey, you know, you should be, you know, working more. So
mhm,
I was going a bit slower with the Kemenche. Uh, but I knew that in a low temperature, if you cook something, it tastes better at the end. So I just did it. Okay, I will go a bit slower, but they will cook together, and at some point, it's going to be a very, very tasty dish. So I'm still glad that I made this choice of kind of learning this, having this experience of learning musicology, and also, broaden my horizons. And yeah, it really helped me a lot.
Interesting. Maybe that will come later when we discuss what
Yeah.
happened after the bachelor degree. But I know you were busy also with a lot of competitions and all these kinds of things and concerts. Maybe discuss few of these things at this early stage.
Actually, they come after the bachelor. So till the end of bachelor, I was just really, really busy with learning the Ottoman music. I was like every week, 4 or 5 times, I was in different meshks with different masters. I had a really big chance to work with great masters like Fikret Karakaya and Daria and Ruhi Ayangil. Like I was every week busy and with the performance and learning different sort of repertoire and improving myself in different branches of this music. And I had really devoted colleagues who were willing to work every day almost for hours just to play and experience the way of performing together. So yeah, even I must tell, I've never earned any money. The master. It was just when I had the concert, it was just for free, just for the concert, just to fit like I don't know, there was nothing commercial in performance for me. And then I went to Venice for a workshop with Kutsi Erguner. It was the last year of my bachelor. And there I kind of discovered that there is a school in Holland, and they invited me like, there's no Kemenche player. It will be amazing if you come. And then I applied for it, but then I just didn't act anything on it. And in July 2016, then I decided to leave Turkey, even though it was a very hard decision for me, because by then I got an offer from a state university in Turkey to be a Kemenche teacher, which is a lifelong job. And also I accepted for 2 different masters, one in musicology and one in performance. So everything was so much like a settled and nicely figured out. But then I had this crazy idea of exploring, new paths and improving myself in different branches. So I just decided to leave. And then things actually started to roll and happen.
So you are seeking challenges then. So what was the decision factor to go for this?
Well, first of all, of course, it was a very hard time for Turkey. 2016, a lot of political things were happening, and also like the bombs. The situation was so vague, and I'm a very anxious person, and I have a lot of fears about life, and so I was a bit like not feeling secure anymore. And furthermore, I was feeling, yeah, if I just go for this job till the end of my life, I have the financial security, then what? Then what is my, because I see in Turkey a lot of people who have this kind of jobs, after maximum 5 years, they just became like I don't know, like a machine, that they don't enjoy their life, they don't enjoy the music, and I didn't want to be one of them. So it was too early for me to settle down in such a job and environment. But Yeah, it was complicated. It was kind of impossible also for a person like me to go outside of Turkey and to have an education outside of Turkey, because I mean, my father is just a teacher, and with a salary, it's kind of impossible to have. Like,
Scholarship or support.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was so short time that I decided to go to Holland. So if you would normally arrange it a bit beforehand, then you can find a scholarship and etc. But I didn't have the chance, so it was very tough in the beginning, and I really regret in the first 3 months that I had that decision, because imagine, like, my father had a loan from bank to pay the tuition fee, and the rest of the amount was 900 euro. I remember still the amount, and he was like, "Okay, this is the 900 euro. I can only give to you, so you should go there. You should find a work or something like that. I cannot help you at all." And with 900 euro, I came to Holland, and I didn't have anyone here that I know, and my English was not that great by then, so it was very hard, and I was one month late to the school, to the master education,
Yeah.
and it was like a nightmare. At the end, that I had to find a job. I have to understand the education in Holland, and how this master works, and yeah, it was very tough. And I had a lot of discussions with my supervisor, that I'm so behind, I cannot catch up anymore. And so it was really like, when I was in bachelor, I was the top of the class, of the faculty. I graduated as a top of the faculty. Yeah, when I came here, I was just the most stupid student in the class. It was amazing. I was just having like this, what's happening? I was such a successful student. What happened to my life? And it was very tough. But after this 3 month process, then it was Christmas holiday. Then I went back to Turkey. Then the competition happened, and I went to Ankara directly for the competition, and I got the first prize. And of course, it was both financially and psychologically very supporting. That I just felt, okay, I should go for it. And then at the end of this process, I found some small jobs that I can pay rent and etc. And I was very lucky to find a Dutch Turk family here that kind of supported me, and they opened their house to me, and they really supported the process.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe in the first section of our discussion, let's conclude it with some highlights on the main masters that you were influenced by, people who you met and learned something from. A little highlight here and there, and maybe conclude with that learning experience. Yeah.
Actually, all my teachers, I had a lot of teachers, and actually, this is not allowed
Yes.
Turkish music.
Yeah.
But all my teachers was coming from the same route, from İhsan Özgen, the great Kemenche master. So that's why I didn't have so much struggle, but I had the chance of exploring slightly bit different approaches around the Kemenche Tavır, the way of playing. And I had I had the chance also with my teachers that they were also kind of accepting that I'm working with another person as well. So because some teachers are really strict about that, but I was lucky, and I just try to absorb whatever I can from. Yeah.
Interesting. And one more thing about comparing the Kemenche to the violin. For example, the violin has a lot of methods that are very well known, or maybe other method books and masters in comparison with the Kemenche and its own way of playing. Right? in terms of difficulty, expression, the bow.
Yeah.
This is something like so unique, right?
Yeah, it is. It is really unique indeed, and unfortunately, there are not that many methods on this instrument. But I think good enough to develop a technique on the instrument, because there are methods only focuses on the high technique. There are methods kind of focus on the repertoire, learning via repertoire, and some of them just to teach you which note is where and how we can combine it slowly. So there are good methods, but of course it's a primitive instrument, and also kind of having primitive sources to learn it. But still, I think nowadays, if a person just starts Kemenche, she or he can find her way very quickly via these methods.
Interesting. We will be discussing the way you teach Kemenche and music in a while, but before that, let's pick a piece of your own playing.
Okay.
And
So
let's have a break.
yeah, let's do that.
So what would you like to share with us? Which piece?
I can share the Nihavan Taksim. It's recorded in Istanbul, and it's recorded with a very special instrument, actually. And it's made by Baron, one of the most oldest luthier of Istanbul, and also Jamil Bey plays his instruments. And I bought it from Canada, and it was an order of a sultan in Ottoman Palace. So very, very unique instrument. So we can share that.
Interesting. We'll listen to it then.
Yeah.
So thanks, Amina, for the Nihawan Taksim. Let's now go for teaching. Your teaching, how did you start teaching from the early stages to now?
I started teaching very, very early, actually. I was 16, and I started to teach salsa and guitar in primary schools to very big groups of students, of young students. And I think I have the natural talent, let's say, of teaching. But also my father is also a teacher, and so I got some spark, let's say. And I always loved sharing the knowledge, So I always compare different methods and different teaching systems, skills, and so I kind of developed it for myself. And I started teaching Kemenche after 4 years maybe of playing, 4 or 5. I waited a little bit because I had so much respect on Kemenche teaching. And I never felt that, okay, my level is enough to teach. It's such an important actually thing that if your technique is not good enough, then it's really hard to share your knowledge or skills on this instrument. So, but when I started, I really had a good vision in what to teach and what to not teach, how to start, where to go, because I had a lot of teachers, as I mentioned earlier. I had so many ideas and so many different approaches on teaching. And I kind of collected all this information and styles, and I kind of merged them in a way that I believe. And so then now I'm really happy about my system, and it's kind of settled finally after, I don't know, 7 years of teaching. Now it's kind of settled. And now I believe that I can teach to anyone in any age, because I had experience from 16 to 75 years old student range. And I know how to approach to a certain goal, certain age, certain goal of the student. So what I do is, first, of course, I teach the where is where, which note, and then normally most of the Kemenche teachers not teaching the ornaments at least within the first year or first 2 years. For them is the very like later stage thing to teach ornaments. But for me, it's the opposite, because when I learned Kemenche, I immediately start ornamenting. I got the tavır, and it really helped me to have a pleasant also practicing time. The instrument. And also in that way, I started to feel, okay, I'm in the music now. I'm not just playing like, it made much more sense. So I also do the same thing with my students. After a very short time, I start showing a lot of different ornaments. I'm very generous about sharing. And I just teach them, okay, in this kind of phrase, you can use these ornaments. And then after a while, they also get automatically, okay, this is the same sort of sentences. So I can, again, apply this ornament here. Of course, at the end of the lesson, they don't do all the ornaments I show them, but they are having the idea, their ears getting used to these ornaments. And after a while, they start to apply this instrument. So, which I find kind of useful. And when I see my students and the development of my students, I really feel like, okay, this is a good way of approaching it, because I really feel that they also enjoy their time. They also enjoy having these challenges and to explore the beautiful part of it. Not only like, where is Ray, after that I will go with the, legato bow to other one, but they're more like, okay, it's a nice ornament there, and I can make it softer. I can make it like sometimes harder, sometimes very staccato, but they enjoy the musical phrase itself by learning.
So you are seeing results from your students. That's why you believe this system is effective.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what do you teach exactly through the system? Do you go by like melodic models or pieces or repertoire, or what kind of thing? What do you do in the session? How long is it? Group, individual, like put us in the inside. Yeah.
I do individual lessons, and it's mostly, as I say, first we start with the notes, but then after that, when we cover it, then we go makam by makam. So I start with Rast or another makam or Buselik. Then my approach is first teaching a peshev,
Mm.
and then kind of a slow song,
Mm.
and a sasemaisi,
Mm.
and after that a Sufi song,
Mm.
which are quite easy when you compare with sasemaisi, for instance.
Mhm.
And it is melodic, and
Mm.
it is really settled in the makam.
Mm.
In its makam. If it is for the Rast Ilahi, then you really hear like, okay, the makam is there, and it's easy to grab, let's say.
Mhm.
And I teach all those, and if my student is experienced in other sort of musics, and if they're willing to improvise, then I teach them how the makam grows, and what is the way of improvising, and then I just do several, for instance, first several entrance sentences in that specific makam, let's say Rast.
Mhm.
By the opening sentences for different, like 5 different opening sentences, let's say, and then developing parts. I record several of them, and then I record how to end the makam,
Mm.
4 or 5 different version. Then I ask them, listen them, transcribe them if you would like to, and then make your own taksim out of this.
Mhm.
I also send them Rust taksim, for instance, from other Kemenche players or ney players,
Mhm.
number players, and then they get a lot of experience with the makam. They play peştev, seslemayesi, şarkı, Sufi song, and also hearing how to do the improvisation in that makam at the end. So they're kind of equipped with the elements of that makam
Mm.
and how to apply that makam to the instrument.
Yeah.
So this is generally the way, but some of course students doesn't want to just jump into improvisation part, so then I skip that. Then I go to another makam.
Interesting. Now, I mean, I am sure in each piece of music there are a lot of things in there.
Yeah.
There is the makam, the rhythm, the style, the tavır, a lot of things. Even the background, as you said, the intellectual part,
Yeah.
right? The history, whatever. How do you give all of these things in the classes? You break it, you analyze it, or how do you do that?
Unfortunately, I don't have a student who eagers to explore all the aspects of the makam music. It's
Yeah.
either people who really would like to learn Kemenche itself without the background of the Kemenche or the Ottoman music, or people who just would like to learn how to improvise in makam music.
Yeah.
But I don't have a student who really would like to learn also the background of it, like background of music and the history and the story of it. But yeah, I'm also of course like happy to share it, but willing.
Yeah. And for teaching the different tavers, there are a lot of styles for Kemenche now. This
Yeah.
classic Kemenche. Do
Yeah.
you teach these things, or maybe that's like a later stage, or maybe from the beginning?
No. That I don't teach. I only, as I say, I share recordings of great masters like Cemil Bey or İhsan Özgen, and I just tell them, okay, listen, this is a different tavır, but I mainly teach my own tavır, of course. Probably after a later stage, then gonna be something. If I have a really like high level student one day. Then we can, of course, go further with these parameters. But for now, it's just focus on the tower that I play and listening the other towers around the Kemenche.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier. Amina, you said that you have seen a lot of teachers, a lot of masters, and you have seen their style, their way of teaching, and so on. What are the traits of great teachers from what you have seen?
I think being patient is the most important. My teachers were a bit education.
Yeah.
And but still you learn from that. Maybe
Mm.
it's a nice thing. And I think being generous
Mm.
with sharing is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And being supportive
Mm.
is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have it all from all my teachers all the time. Of course, it's impossible,
Mm.
but I had most of them. So
Mm.
that's why I was lucky.
Talking about the support, how is the feedback sometimes is positive or negative from what you have seen working with the masters or being a master teaching others? The feedback itself, does it have good side effects and bad side effects?
Yeah, it has, but I think the balance is really important because I know very strict teachers.
Mm.
They're having really bad impact on the students,
Mhm.
and luckily I've never had them. I had one teacher at some point that was a bit rough,
Mm.
but it was more like uh, let's say competitive instinct.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it really didn't left a good taste
Mhm.
for me. But
Okay.
but rather than that, it was always nice. Only of course at some point you also need the kind of harsh feedback that okay, I mean this doesn't work. So you should figure it out something else.
Mhm.
And this I also found it very interesting because uh, I'm kind of a person who learns more from the negative feedbacks and negative,
Mm.
uh, well, yeah, negative.
Yeah.
Couldn't find another word, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
truly negative, but let's say it's not as positive as the other supportive comments.
Mhm.
And I learn a lot from them, but of course, then it makes you a bit feel uneasy, like okay, does my teacher likes this or not, and then you feel stressed about preparing something. Then I had for so long this teacher's hat here when I was practicing Kemenche.
Mhm.
I was like, is she gonna like it or not? And so it was not a good feeling at the end, but then it improved my playing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's just important that if that person is always negative or also giving the positive feedback. So in my lessons, I'm always trying to find a balance
Mhm.
to keep it
Interesting.
both motivated, but also kind of encouraged to do mistakes is also, welcome here, but you should make an effort to
Mm.
uh, improve it.
And Amina, you said one of the traits of great masters and teachers is to be generous. Will
Mhm.
that result in a confusion sometimes to students?
It does actually, but there are ways to not confuse your student and be still generous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of experience, I think, to know where the confusion comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So that you just keep yourself a bit stingy at that moment.
Uh-huh. Okay. Is there a plan in your lessons? Amina, like a method or something, or maybe going through the repertoire as you said, and then.
Yeah, first I go with the method of Aslıhan Özel. I
Mm.
think it's very, very good method,
Mm.
very good starting method because every week, every lesson, it adds one more notes,
Mm.
and it was like three, four, five, sometimes different uh, musical examples,
Mm.
little pieces
Yeah.
that he composed specifically for Kemenche.
Yeah.
And then within 2 3 months then you learn where is where in a very nice way. Even you can learn how to read scores from them because it's like a map, let's say.
Mm.
It is very nice, and after that I moved to repertoire.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Now, talking about the repertoire is so vast and it
Mhm.
goes back in history. especially the Ottoman repertoire, so systematic and so colored and so on. How do we go, like musicians, as musicians, professional or really in-depth interest of music in this vast repertoire? How do we, what to choose, how to choose, right?
Yeah.
Especially at this age, this time.
Well, now I see that, for instance, when I start Kemenche, I started from the repertoire of 20th century
Mm.
and 19th after that. And then I went back 18th and 17th. And
Okay.
now I see when I try to observe, what's happening in the repertoire, actually it's easier to approach the 17th century first
Mm.
because it's less complicated. After 18th century, it's becoming a bit more, especially in instrumental music, it's becoming more and more complicated. But I remember with my colleagues, with my musician friends, we were always listening this 20th century or max 19th century pieces because that period was the most recorded part of the repertoire. So we both knew them, and it was challenging, and we loved it. But actually, now when I teach, I feel like, okay, using the older repertoire is better for the student because it's less complicated and more settled.
Interesting.
So, yeah, now I go from the exactly opposite direction.
And okay, for musicians, if they go into this vast repertoire, are there side effects? For example, they will be into the old music, or maybe centralizing their taste on particular thing. How do we deal with the repertoire? Do we have to worry about it at all?
I don't think it's just a matter of taste and your, I don't know, your musical vision at that moment, because sometimes you really want to kind of calm down yourself, and you want to focus on very like less happening songs, let's say, less happening, the old repertoire, let's say. But sometimes you feel so complicated in your mind, and you just want to explore the 20th century or 21st even, to explore new dimensions. So, but the thing is, the way you're playing is kind of the same. You just interpret all those times, all this history, in this moment. But it's just a matter of what you need. And around you, like the people that you are doing projects, what they need. So I don't think there is a concern about how to approach the repertoire, because the repertoire is there. You just pick what you want, and then you just interpret it. So.
And that's why we see a lot of musicians and players playing maybe the same instrument, and they are different people with different identities.
Exactly. And they play the same piece in many different ways. So.
Interesting. So talking about playing pieces, let's choose another piece.
Okay.
And let's enjoy it together with our friends in Anadi. So what would you pick for us?
So maybe we can go something that can also reflect to my Holland journey. So I will share a song that I played with orchestra, Netherlands Blazers Ensemble, in a royal hall. It was a very exciting concert, and we played a song called Ares.
Interesting. We'll listen to it then.
Yes.
Now let's move to practicing. What is an efficient practice? How do we practice?
I'm the wrongest person to ask this. No, I'm not. But it's really in this kind of instruments and this kind of traditions. It's really hard to build a practice method and practice pattern, let's say. And I really struggle with that. And when I first started, I was more like, then you have some house homework you have to do, then you just repeat it like 100 times and you don't know that much what's happening. But after some time, it becomes kind of a problematic area because you have a lot of things to practice. A lot of possibilities. You can practice just playing scales, you can practice rhythmical improvisation, you can practice just intonation, you can practice improvisation just like a normal improvisation, you can practice how to make an impro on chords instead of a maqam. So it's like endless. And sometimes I really struggle. Plus, you have to practice for the projects that you are involved. So then I mostly have this feeling of being lost in what to do, and then I end up not practicing at all. But this happens, of course, not that often. But still, in a later stage, for me it's harder to focus and have a good plan. For that, I do in the mornings. Sometimes I have this the system of practicing when I wake up and I have my this warmish water with lemon and some vinegar, to start my day, and it's half an hour. I just drink that, and half an hour I shouldn't eat anything. So that's my time to just play scales on Kemenche. So I'm trying to improve my, intonation with that, and I don't do any ornaments, just scales, just focus on my bow and the left hand techniques. This half an hour, it's very short, but in a way, it's boosting all my day, and I feel like I achieved something from the beginning of the day. So it really helps. And then after that, depends on my daily schedule. If I have a lot of other stuff, then I prefer just focusing on what I have to practice for the project that I'm doing or for the theater shows I'm doing. So it's just based on the period challenges. But if it is not there, if I have time to practice, then I'm just making a plan, like 40 minutes of rhythmical improvisation. And I just put a loop under me, and I just try to improvise. And that, or some other challenges. I want to kind of have the feeling of improving things. And yeah, rather than that, I just sometimes just sit and just do improvisations for an hour. So switch maqams and just try to feel the instrument. So it really depends. But I must admit, I'm really jealous about my friends who are coming from classical music tradition, and they have this super systematical way of practicing and routine, and they feel so uneasy if one day they don't touch the instrument. And yeah, I find it so nice, and unfortunately it's not exist in our practicing system. But I'm kind of trying to develop it. And for instance, now after long years, I was have 1 month in Turkey. I just rented a house in a cottage, and it's just nobody around, just nature, and very like cute stone house. And I will have 1 month there by myself, and I will just work. I will just study. So I will just practice every day. And then I think this question would be better to ask after that. That I will have some sort of a brain power, like how can I make it most efficient, plan it around. And But yeah, I'm really looking forward
Interesting. We'll have an interview only on that particular experience.
to do that.
Yeah, sure. But what about the time to memorize pieces, the time to maybe work on certain kinds of bowing or interpretation? Where does it come in the practice?
Yeah, memorizing is kind of an issue for me because I have this jumpy mind that I always feel, even though I memorize the score, the music, I have the need of some distraction that I just follow the score, you know?
Mm, mm,
In that case, I memorize the pieces, but then I really prefer to just stare at the scores just to keep my concentration because I feel sometimes I just look at Kemenche and suddenly I'm thinking, oh, my shoes is a bit, my mind is just jumping like crazy.
mm,
So that's why I don't spend time on memorizing things.
mhm.
So I'm more focused on how can I make the musical sentences more musical.
Okay.
Um, but
I
of
think,
course, it makes more sense to memorize things and then go deep in with the music at that moment. But unfortunately, I have this.
yeah, as far as you get it lively from the piece, from the sheet music, from the guide,
Yeah,
I mean, what is
it
it?
just needs extra brain power for me. And sometimes, yeah, there it's not possible to put a score on the stage. Then I just play by heart.
Yeah.
But then I just make a much more effort to
Mhm.
stay there, stay in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. And comparing the discipline that comes from classical music
Mhm.
versus the people playing makam music, I don't know. I mean, maybe the result is the end. We judge it by results, right? We never know. Maybe going through a routine and having no good results. It all depends, maybe.
Yes, but I really believe, I mean,
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
uh, ha- give the same effort and focus to these instruments, something crazy might happen.
Mm,
So it's beautiful now, but it can be a miracle
mm,
thing. And or maybe it can make it more robotic. I don't know. So
mhm,
it's really open to experiment because sometimes I feel the masters of today they came to a certain level, but they are staying on that certain level for the past 15, 20 years.
mm,
This can happen. Or people just focusing on the technique and then they just lose the soul of the
mm,
music. So this is also happening. But the question is, can you still keep the deep emotion in, but
mhm,
plus a very high technique? And can you keep uh, improving yourself, developing the technique on this instrument? Because after a certain point, you just feel like, I can play anything from this repertoire, you know? Now my
mhm,
technique is good enough. I can improvise.
mm,
So the competition is very low. I mean, 20 professional people just playing this instrument in the whole world.
mm.
I mean, the
Yeah.
competition is not that high.
Mm,
But then I really developing, new techniques on this Kemenche, on this instrument, as we can do it in a way that, if you really spend time just focusing on developing things,
yeah.
and then it's different. But
Mhm.
we don't do it. We're a bit lazy.
Okay.
I'm
All
trying
right.
to circle,
Yeah.
but I think it's possible.
Yeah.
It's an experiment. You can see in 5 years, maybe in my playing, if
Mm.
something crazy happens, then we know that it's success. But maybe in a negative direction, something crazy will happen.
No, looking forward, really. What about the tendency of distraction? Is it maybe the nature of the need to improvise, the need to play with the melody, bring it to a new form, a new interpretation? That's a tendency we have in Makam music, right? While we play, we say, okay, let's take it there. Let's move it more forward or maybe bring it into unexpected form while we lively play the piece, isn't it? That's a tendency we have.
But that's first in Turkey. That's not the tendency of that much people, because in Turkey the main tendency is just playing it properly with a good intonation and making a good taxi. But for instance, I remember asking a very like renowned Kemenche player that, do you ever practice on rhythmical improvisation? And he was like, no, why would I? It's not exist in our music culture. And I was kind of shocked because, I mean, how come it exists in most of the part of the world and you're a worldwide artist? Like, why don't you do this? Why don't you focus on that? But I feel that the tendencies are a bit limited in Turkey also because that if you try something new, then people judge it. You go out of tradition. Like, what is tradition? Tradition is actually a living thing, right? I mean, it's not, the tradition is not what happened 100 years ago, but how you interpret what happened 100 years ago today. But
Interesting.
this judgment also makes musicians kind of like staying in a comfort zone. So there are very few Kemenche players in Turkey that pushes the borders of the instrument, which is a choice. I don't judge, but I just wanted to say that I don't experience that tendency that much in Turkey.
Very clear. What about musicians who are having multiple instruments in the practice?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was very afraid of it, and I'm still afraid of it because I play the Kemenche and now Kritin Lira. They are very similar, but also very different in the way. And I'm kind of worried that it's going to affect my technique negatively on Kemenche. And it's still work in progress for me to see if it is bad or good, if it is useful or not. But what I see that since I play the Kritan Lira, I feel more open to rhythmical repertoire. It automatically calls for this rhythmical nature, which I don't have on Kemenche. My approach on Kemenche was always more like lyrical, melancholic, I'm also coming from that tradition, and any of my teacher told me to work on something rhythmical. I mean, it's not the part of it, but on the first day I arrived to Holland, people started to ask, can you make an improvisation, within the rhythm? And I was like, oh no, I cannot do it. I was getting red, and because it's really not my comfort zone, and I don't have any experience with that. And now I feel like, I'm kind of opening up with that, and I start to feel what is groove, what is rhythm, and I have more awareness, and also it of course affects the process of the production, me, composing things. Then I feel okay, I can also explore different sort of oud meters. I can combine the oud meters in this way, and I can find a groove in it. So, which is important for me. So in that way, it's very useful. But I think you should really master one instrument in a stable level, then jump into another one if it is really similar. But even then, let's see. I mean, so at the end, how it's going to.
Interesting. Amina, you have mentioned that you have you own some very special instruments.
Yes.
Let's maybe give a highlight about your instruments.
Yes. So I have two instruments from Baron. He's an Armenian luthier of Istanbul. And, actually the best one of his period. And as I mentioned before, Sultans was also ordering from him, and also Jamil Bey played his instruments, which makes it so.
He's the Stradi of classical.
Of the Turkish music. And I had the chance to buy the first one when I was in bachelor, and that was a very like a luck. They found it in an old Istanbul house. I bought it very cheap. And the second one was a real miracle. And I heard about them from my luthier in Istanbul, Murat Yerden. He told me that there are this kind of instruments. I was in bachelor by then as well. And then it was like a certain price, and then I couldn't afford, and I just told my father, please buy it. But then my brother was having another, like being a pilot, he was having a very expensive education. So my father was like, okay, but I cannot do both, so I prefer to invest on your brother. Then I was like, please, it's just, so important. But he was like, you have already 4 Kemenche, you don't need another one. And I was like, no, but it's not like that. It's really, it's really unique. And I never understood, what is the, value in it.
Yeah.
But then it was in Canada. So a lot of people knew it. It's there, but nobody dared to buy it. But then I stopped talking about it. I was like, okay, one day I'm going to get that Kemenche, but I don't know which day. I don't know when, but I'm going to get it. And then I moved to Holland, all the struggles started and etc. And then in my second year of master, I found a very, very bad playing gig for 30 days in Ramadan. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for the first time in my life, and I will just buy that Kemenche. And I didn't know that if the Kemenche is still there, I didn't know, but I didn't want to even ask about it, because when I ask, it's going to become again, oh, yeah, right, there are Kemenches, and then maybe somebody will buy it, I was just, okay, keep silent, just to work for it. When your money is ready, you will go for it.
Yeah.
And then I played there, and it was so embarrassing. Like people were just, people were just eating, and I was playing, and it was so horrible. And I felt so down and unrespected. And people were just, kind of dropping my musical stand, and they were just walking still and even saying like, sorry, or something like that. I was nothing there. And it was really, but I was saying, okay, man, it's for a good purpose, just keep doing that, And at the end, I had the money, and I just contact them again. And then the guy was even older who was selling that thing. He was like a oil guy from Iraq, was living in Canada, and he was about to die. So he wanted to sell, but then he gave the double price. And it was kind of a nightmare, because finally after I don't know how many years, I prepared the money and I was ready to buy it. Then I shared it with one of my teacher, Mehmet Güntekin, and then he was like, okay, I have a friend in Canada who is a musicologist, I will ask him. Then that musicologist found him, and they started negotiate. Then we got 2 of them for a very good price. And then after a week or something like that, one of the students of my teacher was coming from Canada, and he just put it he just bought the pillow from the hotel, and he just put everything inside, and in the pilot cockpit, the Kemenche to Istanbul just after a week. We were planning how to go there, how to get it, So it was amazing at the end, but I was so happy and lucky to have it. But yeah, I worked so much for that.
Wow, that's really a miracle.
Here.
Which one, the dark or the?
It's also the instrument of one of the students of Cemil Bey, Fahire Fersan, female Kemenche player. And I have so much respect for her, and yeah, I feel so lucky to have her instrument.
Wow.
And
would you mind if you show them to us? Just like
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So this is the instrument. It's full of ivory, and also do here. But I changed the picks because it was also ivory, but then it was not keeping the tune steady. So I changed it for now, but I keep the original ones, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard the sound of this in the Nihaben Taksim earlier.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, it is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So this one is from a old Istanbul house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think this is for children, I think. They made it for children.
Mm-hmm.
And this doesn't sound as great, so I don't use it, as you can see. It's just, yeah, a precious piece of art.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, Amina, talk to us about the instrument making. I know you did some instrument making.
Yes, actually, I did. When I was in bachelor and in Istanbul, I had the chance to work with one of the most renowned instrument maker of Istanbul, Fehmi Kılınçer.
Mm.
And yeah, he was very generous teacher to me.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me how to build a Kemenche, and he was also working with İhsan Özgen when he was building Kemenches.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I also get inspired by the idea of İhsan Özgen making an instrument, because he was always saying, yeah, it's really important to also know the instrument within, how to build it, how does it come together. Then you kind of nourish your relationship with the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did that for 3 years, I think. And then when I moved to Holland, I had to stop because my atelier is now in Istanbul.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot make it anymore. But I made like eight Kemenches, and it
Uh-huh.
was fun. It was a
And
bit, but it was nice. Yeah,
and that has added a value on the playing and the style and the reflection of sound.
I think so. I feel more connected because I know now. I know how it works. Yeah, I know how it comes together, and
Mm-hmm.
of course, I would love to play one of my instruments,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I lost one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I borrowed it to one of my teacher. It was the best sounding one, and I was playing that, but then it never came back.
That's a
So
sign of quality then.
I hope so.
Interesting. Amina, let's hit into a few points here and there before we conclude. You mentioned old records and contemporary records, and you told me that you were scoping into the masters by ear and by watching the recording and then maybe mimicking and imitating and maybe problem solve the technique that you are seeing into an execution of your own, right? Would you please highlight some of the main styles of Kemenche playing?
Sure. For actually, of course, the main player, the first recordings actually coming from Tamburi Cemil Bey,
Mm-hmm.
the school of Kemenche.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, we have Hadi again, we have Fare Fersan in the Republic period.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second biggest actually call is İhsan Özgen, and then his students in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is kind of impossible to build a tavır without listening or imitating them for me. Of course, all the students starts with Derya first, and then they move to İhsan, and then at the end they were like, oh, okay, Cemil Bey.
Yeah.
Now it's the other way around, but still, it's really nice. It's really step by step. You just go to the source.
Yes.
These people also coming from that source. Like İhsan Özgen was a huge lover of Cemil Bey. So
He is mimicking the Taksim's, recording them, and
exactly, yeah,
all sorts of things.
yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
Interesting. So, for example, illustrate an example of the difference between Jamil Bey and Hassan, or Dirya and these masters? Just an example to our listeners and viewers.
Yeah. So actually, this is also a topic of my research.
Mhm.
So we will touch that very deeply.
Yeah.
Uh, but for me, they are both modern actors of the field. They both really reflect to the period that they lived in. So they use tradition as a tool to present the now of their period.
Mhm.
So and of course, it was after they have like 50, 60 years in between.
Mhm.
And of course, the time has changed. A lot of things like socio-political parameters changed in Turkey. And the idea of art has changed. The accessibility to records, to books has changed.
Mhm.
And suddenly, for me, Cemil Bey really reflected on the idea of westernization and the studies of Ottoman palace and the influence from Western music, but also the folk music of Istanbul. And he kind of merged all the ideas of his period, and he reflect all those parameters. But İhsan Özgen had the chance to reflect the idea of world music. So he had the chance to tour. He had the chance to explore the other music cultures, like Indian music, like the Western music, but also Greek music, Persian music, and etc. So he had the chance, and he used it in a way that he can merge all these ideas, and he was really brave to try to experiment
Mhm.
on these musical cultures, and the idea of world music was kind of developing.
Mhm.
He saw it, and he just reflect on that.
Mhm.
So they both give us the idea of how to combine the tradition within the period and within the accessibility of sources.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
yeah,
Mhm. Interesting. That's interesting. Maybe we have a discussion of these with your
yeah,
demonstrations later in another chance.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, let's talk about the academic life, Amina. Now, going back to the Netherlands and your studies after that struggle in the beginning, what were you doing exactly, music wise, academic wise, projects, and all of these things?
My master was Master of Music, so more like you have to do a research which should improve your performance.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a real musicological research, and yeah, it took me some time to understand how to do with that, what to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I did a research on how to imitate vocal and on Kemenche, how to implement the ideas, the ornaments of vocal Kemenche. And it really improved me in bowing because you have to imitate the breathing with your bow.
Mm-hmm.
It was challenging, but it was very inspirational times, let's say. And then in my PhD now, I'm working on experimental works in Ottoman Turkish music.
Mm-hmm.
And in that study, I examine Cemil Bey and İhsan Özgen as a creator and developer of a new art world.
Mm-hmm.
And this art world is it's a theory by Becker, and it says that if you invent something that's never done before in art, in music, then you consider as a inventor actor of art world. And what I discuss is Cemil Bey is an actor of of his time, and he made something completely new.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had followers, he had students and followers in the next generation who further developed his art world. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the most important figure is, of course, İhsan Özgen.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm searching is, as a third generation,
Mhm.
How can I further develop this art world?
Mhm.
So it will kind of end there. So how can I? So as I mentioned before, they use their periods possibility, and I should use the possibilities of the time we live in, which
Mhm.
is crazy broad.
Mhm.
Create something new.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, the academic studies, Amina, is always a problem if we are coming from non-practical perspective. But you are coming with a vast experience already from meeting a lot of masters, seeing the vast repertoire. I am sure you have seen non-Ottoman music as well.
Mhm.
And then coming to the academic research, luckily this kind of research, I know you and a few others who really were into the same community. You
Mhm.
guys are maybe utilizing your practical experience together with the research
Mhm.
tools and facilities available.
Yeah.
So do you see the results convincing as somebody who came from a practical side? The results of the research, is it convincing to the other person of you who came from a practical side?
I think it satisfies the practical person more than the academic person.
Okay. Please elaborate on that part.
Because real musicologists just feel that this is kind of a uh, okay, I should find another word for this.
Yeah. Hmm.
uh, Nonsense, let's say.
Yeah.
uh, that is not useful for anyone, but actually people coming from practical world, they see some useful tools in that.
Hmm.
So but what I want to do is I also don't want to exclude the real historical musicology from, the thesis I'm doing, and I'm really focusing on making a really good musicological base under it,
Hmm.
by thinking that I can also please
Hmm.
academic society.
Okay, interesting. And what are the projects you are working on? I mean, I am sure you are so active at many levels. So let's talk about your projects, concerts, music making.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Actually, my main project is Darein.
Hmm.
Ensemble, and it's Dare means two worlds in
Hmm.
Ottoman language. And what I try to do is combining two worlds and merge them kind of organically.
Hmm.
I hate the word fusion,
Hmm. Same here.
and it works. And once, actually, like 2 years ago, a friend approached me by saying, "Oh, I'm researching on fusion approaches in Turkish music, and I would like to have an interview with you." And I was like, "What? Do I'm that
Mm.
person now? I'm not doing fusion." And
Yeah.
at the end, yeah, it's a very irritating word for me.
Mm.
That's why I really avoid to use it. But what I want to do is I really try to merge things organically, and if not, if it is not merging well in a way that I would like to, then I just don't do it.
Hmm.
In that end, I really aim to uh, produce music that is still can be considerable as an art piece,
Mm.
but by collecting different tools of music of art.
Hmm.
So, and I collaborate with a very inspirational artist, with cello player Maya Friedman.
Hmm.
I think we have a very good connection, and we keep inviting new guest artists, and we keep composing for that set list, that lineup, and it's very inspirational for me to also challenge myself to
Hmm.
compose for different setups and with different people. Then you really feel like, okay, I can also work with composing within the jazz music
Hmm.
or Persian music.
Mm.
But when they all come together, then you feel, okay, this sounds like one. This sounds like something has the similar vibe in it. And this I kind of describe like you kind of collect the seeds of two different fruits, but then you make them in one, and then you just grow another tree, then you get the new fruit. It's not like making a fruit salad or fruit juice,
Yeah.
but putting them together. It's such a precious way to think about it. This is what I try to do, and I challenge the capacity of the instrument time to time, and also my capacity, my borders. And I really like doing that. And luckily now I'm in the Netherlands, and I really feel like people encouraging me so much to go out of my comfort zone, and I feel free to try it. Maybe it wouldn't be like as easy and smooth as now if I would live in Turkey. But now I really feel like, okay, I can do whatever I want, and I have the vision, to also put things together in a more intellectual way. So it works very good for me. So I'm very satisfied.
Interesting. What about concerts and records, other than this project?
Yeah, it's I'm generally involving to other people's projects as well as a Kemenche player. And when I first came, of course, nobody would know about what is Kemenche and etc. So it took me some time to first introduce the instrument and then have some kind of network. But yeah, slowly it's building up in the Netherlands. My network is extending, and people, calling me more
Yeah.
for things. And I have the privilege to say also no to the project that I don't want to do. But yeah, mostly the quality of the productions are quite high here. I don't feel like I have to compromise from my vision when I go, if I feel that I say no, of course. But yeah, it's very colorful in the net.
Interesting. And you teach, right? Do you teach
Yes,
online? Do you teach in person?
I do both, but mostly online. Mostly online.
So how can you be reached for classes and lessons and for projects and
I have my own website, and there's a contact form.
okay.
Yeah, from there, people approaches me mostly.
Okay. And so the main thing is the website for
Yeah,
classes and for projects.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Excellent.
also, I get a lot of messages from Instagram or Facebook. It's the new reality of yeah, the community.
Yeah.
So
Excellent. Amina, I think we will meet one more time, maybe more than one more time. There are a lot of things to discuss with you, really. For example, the styles and Tavır, extending more into the projects. Many things that we have discussed really needs more details. Maybe talking about the Kemenche and its position amongst the instruments in Turkey, its history, and what is it doing today. All of
yeah,
these things are really broad and interesting subjects that we can discuss.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I would love to do that.
Yeah. But before we conclude, I'll let you conclude the interview, but maybe choose a piece that will come after your conclusion. What would you pick for us?
I would pick the new video of my project as a to show where I am now as a
Darren.
performer. Yes. And we have the new collaboration with a jazz pianist and jazz percussionist. And I'm really happy about the result of the collaboration. And I also kind of push the borders of the instrument a little bit there. So it can be a good example after all this talk. Uh, closure.
Excellent. So I really thank you very much, Amina, very much
Thank
for this really generous time and accepting the invite and discussing all these interesting topics. And I leave the conclusion to you.
I don't know. Like, what I can say is like, no matter what, just be brave to discover and just don't care about what other people thinks about you. Just go for it.
All right, then we'll do. Thank you very much, Amina.
Thank you.